I'd like to welcome our guest, Dr. Jack Sarfatti. It's been way too long since our last interview, and a lot has happened since then. So I'd like to just jump right in and discuss some of the more interesting recent developments. One in particular is this mandated report that was required from the military and intelligence on unidentified aerial phenomena. And there's a deadline coming up, supposedly on June 1st, for this report to be released. And it's anyone's guess what this report is actually going to consist of and what its impact on society and national security interests will be. And I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I'm somewhat pessimistic because of the people I know who are most likely involved are simply not competent enough in the physics. And they're making what I consider to be a very simple situation, relatively simple situation, which can be easily explained with conventional, mainstream, battle-tested theoretical physics of James Clerk Maxwell's electrodynamics and Einstein's general relativity of the gravitational field, a little bit of quantum mechanics, and we can definitely explain and understand the phenomenon. They're making it much too complicated, and the people involved are simply not competent, in my opinion. I hope to be proved wrong. I hope to be pleasantly surprised by the report, but since they have not gotten in touch with me and Professor Keith Wanzer, who I'm working with, physics professor at Cal State, I am very pessimistic.
I mean, do you think that there is a possibility that what report is released will be heavily redacted and essentially a whitewash and not really get into the real depth of what's going on, simply because it would compromise our national technical means and it would be too disruptive?
Well, I think they're trying to really cover up their own ignorance, and they're not doing due diligence, at least they haven't so far, because they haven't contacted me, and I've solved the problem. My and my associate, we've solved the problem.
Well, I mean, you believe you've solved the problem.
I know I've solved the problem because there's only one solution. That it's an element. The phenomenon itself is quite elementary. It's not difficult, okay? And physics is very strict. The physics rules are very strict, and Einstein's general relativity of the gravitational field gives a very clear path to understanding what we're seeing.
Well, I mean, yeah, but if it was as simple as you said it was, why haven't more people come to the same conclusions that you have?
Well, that's a good question. But the fact is that they haven't, because at least I know Hal Puthoff hasn't, and Hal Puthoff has had some of the highest security clearances and is really their top physicist, and he really doesn't have a clue as to what's going on. I tried to explain it to him in London. We didn't really have enough time, and I don't think he really got it. So I hope to be proved wrong. I hope maybe they are doing their homework, and maybe they will discuss my work in this field, which has already been now in two of these Israeli intelligence reports that Frank Milburn did.
Well, look, we've got supposed drones or unidentified aerial objects buzzing our warships. We've got the famous Tic Tac incident. I mean, this is obviously a hugely important national security issue.
Okay, now the problem with that is that intelligent people, who are in the Air Force background in intelligence, like Mike Turber, and then there's this guy Tyler Rogaway. They have all cast considerable doubt, at least on the 2004, the videos, the Go Fast, the FLIR videos.
Well, they're claiming that it's radar spoofing technology.
Yeah, they're claiming it's radar spoofing.
We were testing out radar spoofing technology on our ships without the knowledge of the personnel on board.
Yeah, now Kevin Day, who was the radar officer on the USS Princeton, has given pretty strong arguments why that probably did not happen. And then Louis Elizondo and I think Chris Mellon also have indicated that what we have seen, what they've shown the public, are not the they have a lot more clearer, better videos, sharper resolution.
Well, that haven't been released.
That have not been released. And
Right.
if that's the case,
do you think they will be released?
well, I don't have no idea.
I mean, maybe
listen. I have very negative expectations of what to expect, especially with the current administration. But we won't get into politics. All I can say is that I know that the Russians have had a head start on all this stuff because the Russians have been monitoring my work, as you well know, since at least the 1980s.
Right.
But that's a whole other story.
Okay, let's move on. Then we have this paper published in November of 2020 by the Begin-Sadat Center for Strategic Studies at Bar-Ilan University in Israel. The paper's titled The Pentagon's UAP Task Force, and it's written by Frank Milburn, a strategic and operational advisor and former intelligence officer. And you and your ideas figure prominently in this article. And what really came across to me when reading it was the emphasis on the potential military and technological threats posed by UAPs, along with the potential benefits of understanding the physics behind UAPs and utilizing it in our own technology.
Okay, so first of all, I want to emphasize that I claim that the physics part of it has been solved. It's not a mystery anymore.
I know, you've said that
okay.
on numerous
So I want to make that very clear. And that's now Elizondo and Chris Mellon have said that these UAPs have interfered with our nuclear weapons systems.
Well, Robert Hastings wrote
Robert Hastings,
UFOs and Nukes. This
right.
is well known, and Salas and a number of others who were actually stationed at some of these ICBM.
And also Peniston,
Peniston,
who's been in touch with me. Was he at? He was at the British place, right?
He was at Rendlesham.
He was at Rendlesham. Yeah.
He actually touched it. He
okay.
The object.
So I'm assuming that that's real. As a physicist, I mean, the Central Intelligence Agency asked me to work on this back in the early 70s. They asked me to work on two related problems. What is the physical mechanism of consciousness, because consciousness plays a role, and how do flying saucers fly? And I've been basically working on this problem for almost half a century, and it turns out it's not that difficult. I've solved both problems, the consciousness problem and the UFO propulsion
problem. Okay, but let's talk about this report. This is really interesting because this is a major think tank in the Middle East.
Yeah.
So it shows that the Israelis are obviously interested in this.
Yeah, it's the Israeli, it's the Mossad and the Israeli army.
Yeah.
The IDF.
And that's significant in and of itself.
Of course it is, yes. So the fact of the matter is, although I've had my own contacts in the American intelligence community, they have not been successful in getting the right people to talk to me directly and to the people I'm working with on the physics solutions to the problem.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's because of personal animosities between some of the key people who do have access to the government, like Eric Davis, for example.
Oh, so in other words, it's petty politics and people not wanting other people's fingers in their funding pie.
I think that's basically what it is, yes. I hope to be proved wrong. But I'm pretty sure that's what it is, because we know in the case of Eric Davis, that's what it is. That's what's happening.
Well, having read the Bessa report, one thing that is very clear from it, and Milburn really emphasizes this aspect of it, is the potential military threat.
Oh yeah, there's a big military threat.
And obviously there is, because if quote, drones can fly around our ships with impunity, and we don't know where they're coming from, those drones could be hostile,
they are hostile. There's no question they're hostile. Now, in terms of the drones, let's make a distinction here.
They use the term drones. I use the term UAPs, because that's what they were. They weren't drones. They didn't make the noise that drones make.
Yeah, okay. So I hope that's the case. What's this guy, Tyler Rogaway? What does he write for?
The Drive
the Drive, whatever it is.
I forgot the name.
He thinks
he's done some good.
He does some good work. So he thinks they may be just advanced drone technology by the Chinese or the Russians, and I think that's quite possible.
You do.
I'm not saying I know that to be the case. It may be genuine UAPs using the low energy
I
warp
mean,
drive.
they would have to be very high technology because we don't have any drones that are silent, that are absolutely
Okay,
silent.
you know,
particularly in large numbers like that and
Yeah.
at such close range.
well, it could be. Listen, the Russians have been working on my stuff since at least 2011, and maybe the Russians have made advances,
Well-
and maybe they've given to the Chinese. It's quite possible. Now, the important thing is what I've come up with recently is the white hole force shield concept, in which basically using the metamaterial fuselage of this UAP, you can pump it in such a way as to create a barrier so that nothing can get through the barrier, but the mechanisms inside the ship can shoot out gunfire or missile fire, whatever you want to do. Missiles cannot get in, but we can shoot outside.
Right.
It's a one-way membrane.
Yeah, you can shoot objects or energy out.
Out of the thing, but
nothing can get in.
But nothing can get in.
Well, yeah.
And this is I actually have the equations for that, and it's something that really has to be considered, and that would be that in itself would be a game changer.
Yeah.
Another thing is that using, in fact, this is something that Hal Putoff actually asked me about in a private email. Could you do levitation? Could you actually make like an Iron Man suit out of metamaterial with a battery pack in which it's anti-gravity, and so you have like flying infantry, you know, like the Valkyrie, you know, and that's all possible. And you could have a tank that's totally
Well,
armored.
yeah. I mean, the proof of concept is the actual metamaterial lifting or anti-gravity. I hate to use that term, but it is anti-gravity.
No, it's anti-gravity. It's repulsive.
It's real anti-gravity.
It's real
repulsive.
anti-gravity. We've solved the anti-gravity problem using small amounts of energy. That's the big message that I'm trying to communicate to people.
All right, to switch topics, wait for that car to go by. An interesting and rather mysterious paper was recently anonymously published on the web titled UAP Theory Explanation of Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. And I'll have to say, from reading it, this has got to be one of the most thorough and competent forensic level analyses of UAP behavior that I've ever read. And I couldn't help notice that much of what the author observed and concluded sounds like it could have been written by you.
Yeah. What he did. Okay, this guy. His name is Thor. I forget his last name. He's a competent guy. I think he has a bachelor level in physics and he's a master in geology. But he's a very good observer, and he's done really good analysis of the imagery from these UAPs.
Yeah. The analysis of the imagery was the best I've ever seen anywhere on the web.
I agree. It was very good, and he came to the same conclusion what I've been saying for a long time. It's gravitational lensing from a low-energy warp drive, which is, I've been basically saying that since 2011, since I gave this talk at the DARPA NASA 100-year Starship Conference in Orlando, Florida. That was a
and that would be relevant to the reverse Doppler shift stuff that Cornette was talking about, and you actually predicted.
Yeah, I predicted everything that he's saying. He actually though doesn't explain how it can happen. He's just showing like Paul Hill did in the 1950s when he did a kind of Sherlock Holmes deductive analysis.
I meant Bruce Cornette, not Bruce Cornell. Bruce
Bruce
Cornette came up with some very interesting data regarding...
Okay, but now I'm talking about Paul Hill back in the early 50s, did a similar thing for the observations they had then, and came up, but Paul Hill did not have a theoretical physics understanding of what he was observing, and neither does this guy. He makes a correct inference that it's low energy warp drive, but he has no idea.
Right, he doesn't.
He's not a physicist.
He has no clues about how this might be happening.
How to accomplish it.
Yeah.
How to accomplish it, and we do. So that's the difference. So his work is very good, but it doesn't explain the details of how to do it, which I believe I have done.
So, where are we going to go next? with you're doing all this work with Professor Keith Wanzer, and what is his background again?
He's a full tenured professor of physics at Cal State, both mainly experimental and some theoretical.
Mm-hmm.
He's in he's in the kind of field involving metamaterials.
Right, condensed matter physics.
Condensed matter. Plus, he knows gravitational physics. Also, he worked with Joe Weber on the gravitational detecting gravitational waves with these big bars of metal, and he's a very competent guy. Actually, he's in the same department, same university that Jim Woodward, with the Mac Fuster, is in. So I don't know. We're doing what we can, but the point is that the powers that be, people like Eric Davis, Puthoff, and all these Chris Mellon, are preventing our work from really being properly vetted.
What's Eric Davis's role as foil in all of this? Does he have major theoretical disagreements with what you're doing? Do you think your physics is crackpot or off the wall or wrong? Or
he's pushing Hal Puthoff's PV theory, which nobody really in the field accepts.
And explain that just briefly for the audience.
The PV theory is it's what's called a scalar theory of gravity. It's a very crude approximation to what Einstein did correctly, and there's no reason to use it. Einstein sort of toyed with those ideas when he was trying to develop general relativity, but the point is Einstein's full theory explains the phenomenon. You don't have to use any approximate so-called engineering sort of approximations to Einstein's theory. And Eric Davis is a competent guy in many respects. He's done some good work, but I think there's kind of a personal competition he has going on with me, and that has, I think, clouded his judgment. But he's part of the intelligence establishment, so he has the ear to all these people, and I think he's been deliberately preventing my ideas from getting a proper hearing with the powers that be.
Yeah, I know we've discussed this before, that this is going to require considerable monetary resources to put the kind of research effort needed to get this thing rolling. But isn't there another step? I mean, what would private funding? Obviously, it's going to be difficult to get government funding.
There's not going to be any government.
There's not going to be any government.
Not
funding.
under the Biden administration.
Right, particularly under the Biden administration.
Particularly under the Trump, maybe. If Trump.
But even then, it was difficult. It was difficult.
Well, I think, as I say, I think the Russians are already doing it. Because the Russians.
I mean, do you have any reason to?
Well,
think
yeah,
that?
you know the reasons. The Russians did video. The Russians did a video of me.
Well, yeah,
on
but
this
I mean, that doesn't mean they're actually devoting serious.
Well, I was told they are.
Financial and scientific resources.
All I can say is that when Vladimir, the guy like you, came and videoed me the second time, he said, I don't know, Jack, but they really like you in Moscow. And we remember you were there in the 1980s when we were working with the Reagan administration on the strategic defense.
The DOJ might come after you now.
Well, hey, I've been telling it. Well, the point is, I've told people in the CIA, they know all about it.
We can't say anything good about the Russians.
Yeah, no. Well, in any case, the Russians, we know since the 80s, and you're a witness to this, have taken my ideas in physics quite seriously.
Yeah, that's true. I am a witness to that.
You're a witness to that. And they've been monitoring us since at least the 1980s, probably the 1970s.
That goes all the way back to the SDI stuff.
The SDI stuff
early 80s.
In the early 80s. The Cap Weinberger and Reagan, Laurie Chickering.
Igor Akhtarin.
Igor Akhtarin in Moscow.
Wasn't he the head of the Soviet Academy of Sciences?
Well, I don't know.
He was
I'm not sure. I don't know. Don't even say I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But in any case, the point is this. I have ample evidence. I have reason to believe that if anybody is working on it, the Russians are working on it, and they're probably working with the Chinese. And of course, the Russians talk with the Israelis. They have pretty good relationships right now. And that might explain why the Mossad was interested in Frank Milburn doing those two. He did two reports.
Yeah, he did two papers.
Two papers.
Right.
So, I mean, there you have it. So I think if these drones that the 2019 incursions on U.S. Navy ships, that may well be Russian technology. I wouldn't be surprised if it was.
Okay, I'd like to switch topics. Another paper was recently published in the prestigious Journal of Quantum Gravity, and it's been widely touted on the net and in the mainstream news as being theoretical proof that practical warp drives are physically
that's a lie.
and engineeringly possible.
It's not the people, the science journalists don't understand what's in that paper. Okay. And the paper has some good points in it, some good theoretical points, but I've discovered all of these papers have made a fundamental mistake, starting with Alcubierre. There's a fundamental error, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but in my opinion, I've only recently realized this. There's a fundamental error in all their mathematical models for the warp drive. It's kind of technical. It has to do with they're saying, well, if you go into superluminal, faster than light, effective faster than light warp drive, you have these event horizons, black hole and white hole event horizons, which prevent navigation of the ship. I now have reason to think that's a mistake. They made a mistake because the mathematical model they use is defective. There's something they don't understand about their mathematical model because they're doing pure formal mathematics without understanding the physical meaning of the mathematical model, and it's a little too complicated. We have some nice slides that you can show about this. The slides that Julien Geffrey from France, what he made. So I think there's a big error in all the papers in the field, and in any case, even without that error, they all suffer from needing too much energy. Even if it's a Jupiter-sized amount of energy, or even if it's 1/10 of Jupiter energy, the point is you can do a very small amounts of energy, and none of them have realized what I have discovered about how the metamaterials strengthen the coupling between the applied electromagnetic fields, which, like the fuel, the rocket fuel is the applied electromagnetic field, and the gravitational warp field that it induces inside the metamaterial. Although people like Elizondo and Puthoff talk about somehow metamaterials are important, they have no idea how they're important. How does the metamaterial transform the electromagnetic energy into gravitation?
Well, I'd like to flesh this out a little further.
Yeah.
I've been thinking, if these are not time travelers, like you suspect, and others suspect from our
no,
future,
they have to be time travel.
Why do they have to be?
Because as soon as the metric engineering is time travel.
Well, why couldn't there be? Why couldn't they be actual extraterrestrials?
Well, they could be let's not confuse. They could be extraterrestrials, but if warp drive means time travel.
I understand that.
Okay.
I understand,
So
but they don't necessarily have to be time travelers from Earth's future. They could be extraterrestrial time travelers.
They could be, except I've had contact with
But yeah, but that
no, but that's a fact.
I understand that, but is it not possible that some of these objects that we're seeing in our skies are from other star systems?
Yeah, of course. You know what? It's like Star Trek. It's like the bar in that's Star Trek. It was Star Wars. Going to the bar. Listen, it's a big universe.
Yeah.
The technology of this is very elementary physics. Right. Any sufficiently advanced civilization.
Right. I mean, if it's as simple as you say it is, an extraterrestrial civilization 1,000 years in advance of us, which is not much in the cosmic scale of things, could have already developed this technology.
We could develop it 10 years in advance of us.
All right, 10 years.
Doesn't have to be 1,000 years.
Yeah,
it's elementary stuff. Einstein could have done it himself. Einstein could have done it. He had everything. The only thing he didn't have was he didn't have the concept of the metamaterial. But he could have even had that. The Germans could have done it in the 30s.
All right. So let me just finish my original thought here. Would it be practical, even with this metamaterial warp drive that you're postulating or hypothesizing, would it be easier for them to go interstellar distances using the warp drive, or would it be easier using a traversable wormhole?
No, you have to use a wormhole.
Okay, explain that.
Yeah,
explain
you
that.
have to use a wormhole.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could do it either way. Actually, you could do it. The problem one of the problems they're worried about with superluminal warp drive is the debris problem, that all the dust. However, I think that can be solved. That's where my white hole force barrier comes in.
Right. You would have to have. I mean, the ship would be obliterated from moving. Even with a regular conventional rocket.
But that may be wrong. See that picture, that whole picture, which they see. There's inconsistencies in the reasoning of the people working in the field, because they're assuming that the ship is actually traveling through space. It's not. It's warping space. So this is the big thing that people have the hardest time understanding. That in fact, the ship locally is not moving at all in terms of its local gravitational field. It's just sitting there, or it's in free fall. You could say it's like you're falling off a ladder.
Right.
You know, and but the point is that everything else, the external environment, is also caught in the same gravitational field. So in fact, there is no relative velocity. There is no relative velocity between, say, dust particles and the ship itself.
Okay.
So in any case, that all has to be explored. I don't think that's a problem. But the preferable way of doing it is through a stargate, through a traversable wormhole, because literally you could just like walk through a door. It's like you just walk. There's no separation at all.
Right.
You literally open the door. On one side of the door is Earth. On the other side is some exoplanet on Alpha Centauri.
Right. And you know, now they're talking about there could be a small black hole at the edge of the solar system, and it's possible that black hole could be some kind of primordial or manufactured wormhole.
Yeah.
And then the metamaterial drive would be great for moving around in the local solar system area at very high rates of speed.
It's possible. But I have a feeling, and I'm extrapolating from what I know now. I'm pushing ahead, but I have a feeling that these Skinwalker Ranch.
Right.
Skinwalker Ranch. They claim Travis. What's his name? Travis Walton? No, Travis. Whatever his name. Travis. They claim that there is a wormhole that's hovering, which is quite possible, hovering about 1,000 feet above.
Well, there's something.
Spot.
There's some kind of
anomaly.
They
think it's a worm, but
they actually use the term wormhole.
Yeah, they do, and Eric Davis did. Eric Davis did. See, Eric Davis and I agree on a lot of things. He has certain ego issues with.
Well, yeah, Eric Davis did talk. He was the guy who was with. I guess he was with Colm Kelleher, and they saw that portal open up and a huge Sasquatch-like creature crawl out from it, and the thing close up like an iris in a camera.
Yes, and in fact, it's in the paper with Jacques Vallée on High Strangeness, the High Strangeness paper. So I don't think we have to worry about taking a ship out to the far reaches of Uranus to find the wormhole.
So they can do it here.
Right, of course here. That's what we're seeing, of course here.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking that they would do it the other way just to be more stealthy, but
no,
obviously
there's no reason. There's no reason.
There's no reason to if they can just pop in and out.
But the thing is this:
want.
I know from my own direct contact when I was a child that now, given everything that's happening with the UAPs and all this stuff, it all makes sense that I now believe that what happened to me as a child was exactly what it purported to be, and we're seeing the result now. We're seeing everything is making sense.